All right, everyone. I'm here live with Matthew Koenig. I was like trying to think, who could I talk to about this Crowdstrike outage today? And I don't even think there was an intro. You just immediately had what was it you just said?
I don't understand. It's called QA. You're a big company. I mean, you just don't push automatic updates.
How do you identify a part of the OS as a malicious actor?
I mean, there's so many freaking vulnerabilities out there. And I mean, one of the things we just added to Nodeware, no, this isn't a Nodeware commercial, but one of the things we just added that people were asking about is patch updating, right? And a bunch of people go, oh, are you going to automate it? No, because you don't know what's going to happen. We're going to let you guys test and then schedule it. We're going to give you a great way to do it.
Yeah.
But no, you automate stuff. You blow shit up. I mean, I got a great story from years ago. This will tell you how old I am. I had a customer that had a 400 server farm. And it was all compact back in the day. And we were co-managing. And the CIO comes to me and says, I want this update installed tonight. And we looked at him and said, no. He said, yeah, I want it installed tonight. And we said, no, we haven't tested it yet. You know, it's still in the sandbox. Well, I'm sorry. I heard it's important. I want it done tonight. I made him sign a document. We came back in the next morning. That was one of the biggest commission checks I've ever made with us getting them back up and running after it blew up the server farm.
Yeah, other people's mistakes make money, right?
Yeah.
You know, I've been noticing like this year, like we've had LastPass have some just really dumb mistakes. Now we have CrowdStrike. Because I remember back in early 2000s when like Norton would come up with updates and it would just break everything. And so you learned really fast. You QA this stuff. You QA it because you don't want to spend the next 2 days without sleep trying to get this business back up and running because you just didn't check the engine on one small environment first.
Well, this is one of those perfect examples, right? Yeah. Where slow is actually fast. Because if you QA it and you roll it and it works, you're a hero. If you try to do it quickly and get it out there because you think that's what you should be doing, well, this is what happens. I cannot imagine how many people are going to lose their job over this. I mean, we're not talking about a bug in software. Yeah, that's what. I mean, we're talking about a global outage.
We're talking about critical infrastructure down. And for those of you who are watching this, like trying to figure out what the heck happened, an antivirus or an anti-malware software came out with an update that identified the OS itself. This is from what I've gotten from my reading today. The OS itself as a bad actor. So it shut it down. So you're at an airport, and I work in critical infrastructure. We loved CrowdStrike because you didn't have to load new DATs all the time. You just had to do engine updates, which you should still QA. There's a process for that. And these critical infrastructure like airports and hospitals love CrowdStrike as well for the same reason that I did. It's really easy to manage and not very many DATs. However, you still have to be careful in how you deploy because this thing can shut down your entire environment with one update. And I think people have just gotten so relaxed, they stopped queuing. They just assume everything's going to be okay because they didn't go through the freaking crap storm we did in the late 90s, early 2000s with McAfee and Norton and pick your flavor of the week.
Well, what drives me crazy is the fact that how many people just trust nowadays in this world we live in, right? CrowdStrike big. CrowdStrike's $1 billion company. CrowdStrike won't make a mistake. I got news for you. I am 100% sure they did not do this on purpose. I am 100%. I'm 1,000% sure of that.
Their big narrative right now is just they want everybody to know this was not a cyber attack.
Right.
It just looked exactly like one, and it behaved exactly like one.
Right. I mean, and I know they didn't mean to do this, but guess what? I didn't mean to shut down, I don't know, all the money flow or the electric grid or
the backhoe didn't mean to dig into your fiber, but here we are.
Yeah, you just can't make those kind of mistakes when you manage critical infrastructure. Yep. I mean, CrowdStrike just cost the world billions of dollars.
Yeah.
More than their market cap.
What I thought was funny is I found out about this outage from my wife. She was like, she's in an airport going, ah, crap. I'm like, what? And she's like, this outage is causing problems. At least my flight's not delayed. And I'm like looking up and like, ooh, that's not good.
They showed a picture of the Atlanta airport this morning, which is my home airport.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that place is busy enough as it is, but they showed an aerial view of the inside, the terminal. It looked like, 5 million ants invaded. There was not standing room anywhere in the check-in room area.
Yeah, I told Andrew she can get to Denver. I can drive out and find her.
Exactly. This just goes back. If you're going to be someone that is trusted by millions, and you have the kind of control over the universe you have, which guess what? CrowdStrike is not just a software company. They literally, in this case, oversee tens of millions of businesses and critical infrastructure pieces. You got to be better. You just have to be. Slow down. Look, I'm not a programmer, so I'm not going to preach exactly what needs to be done. But the admittance is it was a bug in the software.
A bug.
All right. Here's a concept. They have debuggers. It's called a debugger for, it sounds like they rush something out without taking the time to whatever. And I'll go back to what I said. Slow, in this case, is actually fast.
Yep. So in Nodeware, you guys have firsthand experience. That's why I thought it'd be great to talk to you. Like, how do you guys avoid, you hinted at earlier, like you have a process to avoid doing this to systems like
our QA process. We can't afford to be, I won't mention companies that put out stuff and then fix it afterwards. And I'm not saying we've never made a mistake. That would be an absolute lie. So anybody listening to this, I am not saying we've never made a mistake, but we do the best we can. We do an internal QA process, multiple people involved, so multiple eyes on it. We then do beta live with some of our customers where they try to beat the crap out of it. They try to break it. They come back to us with all kinds of feedback. And then we go back in and we fix it or add to it or change it, and we QA it on the internal again.
Yep.
When we think it's ready for prime time, we then do a pilot program with just a few MSPs that have agreed, hey, this should work, but there could be a problem, right? Like Apple's beta, right? Do me a favor, check it out.
Yeah.
Then and only then, when we get everything works the way it's supposed to, do we actually roll this out?
Yeah.
And as a smaller company, as I said, I'm not saying we're the best. I'm not saying we've never made mistakes. I'm saying we have to be 100 times more careful because we're not a big company in the fact that we can't roll something out and then go, oops, we broke shit. Yeah. And we got to fix it now.
Yeah. But you're a company who your job is to ensure, endpoints and make sure they're operating well. You need to be a source of truth.
Yep.
And you need to be reliable because one bad change on your environment affects every endpoint you're installing. Like me, our software, if I make a mistake, the portal's down for 20 minutes. It doesn't really affect your customers. If a endpoint monitoring or an endpoint service makes a mistake, your clients start losing money, and that's embarrassing. It'll be interesting to see what CrowdStrike does to learn from this and how they handle it. Because I felt like LastPass mishandled theirs a bit and lost a lot of faith in the crowd because they didn't handle the failure correctly. So what's CrowdStrike need to do now to help people feel confident moving forward? Why shouldn't I just move over to Cylance or a competitor?
I honestly don't know because, I'm not dealing in such an enterprise. I used to back in the day when I first started. But the first thing, honestly, is admittance and an apology. As little as that fixes stuff, I think the biggest thing, and I think they've done that. I haven't read recently the news this morning, past first thing, is saying, look, we screwed up. We're sorry. It won't happen again. Then doing whatever they can to help people get back up and running, even if it means dispatching their own people or their own people working with people to get critical systems back up and running, if that's something they can help with. Again, based on what they do, I don't know if that's something they can help with, but you know what? Volunteering assistance and people and everything shows a real commitment. And then finally coming forward and saying, here's how we're fixing it. You know, we've learned from our mistake. We're going to fix this process. Here's how we're fixing the process. This shouldn't happen again. We're not promising a mistake will never happen again, but we've learned from this and there's how we're going to fix it. I also think things would go a long way of them, of course, and I'm assuming they're going to do this, right? And some kind of remuneration back to the companies that, again, that doesn't fix a global shutdown. You can't make up for billions of dollars the airlines probably lost during this whatever.
Yep.
But you can offer something, even if it's token, to say, you know what, I'm going to give you service free for a year or whatever it is. I mean, I can't make their mind up for, you know, that may be way too much money or whatever. But look, again, it's admittance, acceptance, apology.
Yep.
And we're going to not only do something about this, but we're going to do our best to try to help you because we know we affected you. And no matter anything we say, doesn't fix that.
Yeah. The thing I feel like the name of the game in technology lately has been, okay, we screwed up or somebody screwed up. Let me figure out a way to make it somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
You know, and we're going to do it. We have a podcast releasing on Monday. It's talking about how to strategically learn from failure. And part of it is you can't control anybody but yourself.
Right.
Now, your lawyers are going to want you to defer because they don't want to take on the risk for billions or trillions of dollars on this outage. So they're going to say, you got to find some way to deflect. Otherwise, we're going to go bankrupt. But even better would be like, okay, here's what happened. We should have QA this better. Here is our part of it. We would like to know from Microsoft why this wasn't in our QA environment, whatever it was.
Right.
And then come up with a release saying, this is how we fix it going forward.
Right.
Because hiring somebody who has failed and become better out of that failure, that's who you want on your side. I don't want the company who's never failed and hasn't learned from failure because I don't want to be their learning situation.
Well, the other thing is, I think, like you said, automatically, we're firing a bunch of people. Well, guess what? Do you need to fire a bunch of people? Was it one person that was sleeping and didn't bother to do this? Was it a process in place, right? But it got missed by 10 people. My point is, firing everybody doesn't fix the problem. So if you have long-term employees, although this is a huge mistake, okay, the reality is it was a mistake, and firing them does not fix the problem. Firing them does not bring back all that intellectual data they have about the way things work.
Yeah, you just got rid of the people who learned from this mistake, and you're going to hire a bunch of people who didn't. No, they're just going to have the fear of, oh crap, if I make a mistake, I'm getting fired. So they're going to cover up. They're going to deflect.
And nobody cares. I mean, you announcing that we fired all the people, and again, I don't know that they're going to do this. I've just heard it happen before.
It happens.
But hearing we fired the whole staff that was on this. Yay. I don't care. Doesn't help me. You just screwed over their families, but it doesn't help me at all. What'll help me is you fixing the mistake and coming up with a way for it not to happen again.
You fired people who you had hired who are not capable of learning.
Right.
Yeah, they made a mistake. Should they stay on board? Now they can be an example to say, do not skip this step. This is how in 2024 we shut down half the airports in the world.
Right.
And so if you get rid of them, like, yeah, it's a lesson learned and it becomes a policy, and eventually you're going to make the mistake again. But if you say, hey, here's what we did wrong, here's how we own it. I would love to see the root cause here. I can't wait to see what actually was identified. And maybe it's out there right now and I don't know. If you do know, please post in the comments below. All I know is that a portion of the Microsoft OS was identified as a malicious actor. This is not a cybersecurity attack. I think that's the
right. And you know what? I give them props because that is the first thing you need to do, or there's going to be a human meltdown. Not only are they going to be down, there is going to be this conspiracy, this freak out, this, oh my God, the Russians got to our power, whatever.
Yeah.
So I can do it. Them props for that being the first thing they said, that look, It was a mistake. It was not a cyber attack, because you know what? Doesn't make it a lot better, but it does make it better.
Yeah. Owning it, I think their PR has been great on it. They owned up to it. They immediately said there was an issue with our recent release that did this and this and this.
Yep.
And, you know, I remember when VMware had a release that they forgot to take out, maybe you didn't know about this one. They forgot to take out the dev kill switch. So like, hey, this patch is only good until June 30th of 2011.
Right.
And when they released it, they forgot to take out the kill switch. And it's just so you didn't run on old copies internally at VMware. And they had to do an emergency like release. The only reason I knew about this is because guys I worked with were best buds with people who were developing at AWS and at VMware. And they're like, dude, you need to update now.
Yeah, I mean,
we can't tell you why, but patch now, because they hadn't released we screwed up. And
the thing is, at the end of the day, it's a mistake, right?
Yep.
It's a big mistake, but it's a mistake. So to put that in context, yes, can you afford a mistake when you're dealing with this stuff? No. Well, then get people out of it.
Yep.
And by the way, I am not saying you should put AI in charge. That's not what I'm saying.
You know, for AI, we're in charge. Ironically, CrowdStrike is quasi AI. So,
but I just don't want anybody watching this going, "Oh, he's trying to get rid of the job." No, I'm just saying it's humans. We're fallible. It's factual. If you've got a human involved, they can and will make a mistake as much as you need them to be perfect.
Yep. And this is a great learning lesson. And I think it's been a while since we've had an outage due to a malware service. They've been so reliable for so long. And I think it's how we got here. And you said it earlier, we're getting complacent with our QA. Yeah. We're assuming everything is going to work out.
Yeah.
That everything is going to be okay. And in the end of the day, you still need to do QA because this stuff happens. And this shows you how many people weren't doing QA.
Right.
This isn't just an isolated, just DIA went down. This was hospitals. This was, imagine coming into your computer in the morning and your anti-malware has shut down your computer because it thinks it's a big virus. And so having that be a part of your QA process, like, hey, let me release it in our pre-prod environment.
Yep. Hey,
everything looks great. Let me launch it in prod. Now, does your prod and your dev environment match? Does your QA environment match these are all things that as a guy who ran in the corporate world for 2 decades, these are things we have internally. We have teams dedicated to this.
Yeah.
It is their job to try these things, but they're expensive.
And here's the other case. You can't believe someone else. You have to test it yourself. I mean, that's why, again, we give you the last 2 patches that were available. I love that. Be known as International Blue Screen of Death Day. Awesome. I want that on a shirt.
I'm thinking International QA Day.
I mean, but the reality is, again, the reason we don't give you just the latest one and we don't auto apply it is because you know what? We assume, and in this case, it's okay because it doesn't affect anybody. We assume that you're testing it before you push it to your customers. We don't assume because we gave it to you, you're just going, oh, cool. You can't, it's not our patch. You can't just trust, oh, it came from Nodeware. We're okay. It's not our patch. Don't trust us like that.
Yeah. So final thoughts here. I told people this would be a 20-minute update just so they could quickly get a digest of what was going on. CrowdStrike had a bad release that identified Microsoft OS as a malicious actor and shut it down, which caused anybody who was running CrowdStrike in these environments to have computers that didn't work if they were running Windows. So you can say, oh, just run Mac or Linux, But what are your final thoughts on this? And then we'll put everybody to bed here.
The reality is this is something that everyone will recover from at some point. It'll be, it'll go in the past, just like what was it with the year 2000 craziness and everything that went on. But look, if you're gonna take on the responsibility for so much critical infrastructure, you have to act like it. You have to be better than everybody else. And I know it's not fair, but it's reality. You need to be better and more accurate and more polished than anybody else out there.
Yep.
And if you can't be, someone else will come along and do it for you.
Unfortunately, in critical infrastructure, what I do know is they always look at the neighbor and say, oh, at least they crashed too, so I'm off the hook. Rather than, I didn't crash, but you did.
Right.
Critical infrastructure is important. If I do something that takes down the electrical grid in Lincoln, Nebraska, just because I forgot to do something, that is on me. I need to make newspaper headlines, and it needs to be set up as an example. If it happens to be that I am running a website for cute kittens and I make the same mistake, not a big deal.
Right. It's not a big deal.
So yeah, you need to be held to a higher standard.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm not an expert. So for all of you watching, this is my opinion. I don't know any more than you do, except for what we've read. But again, no matter what happened, you're going to want to be big and you're going to want large critical customers. You have to be better. Period.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Matt, for coming on. We'll try to, maybe we'll do something a little bit after we know more and how we can respond better. How's MSPs? Can you get ahead of this and help some of these customers, especially the mid-sized ones, that are running Crowdstrike? How can you help them have assurances in the future that you're there for them?
Yeah, because some of these companies, if they were medium-sized companies, this could have put them out of business.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Matt, and we will see you later.
Thanks. Take care.